It's Monday, can you tell? And we're going to talk about a little migration. So, during this industrialization period, 1750 to 1900, there was a lot of movement. And there are some different reasons for that. And this is what you're going to need to know on your AP test. Welcome to Freaking History. And if you want a 3, a 4, or a 5 on your AP World, AP Euro, or A Push exam, I'm the guy to see. Because of all the relocation to the cities, because that's where a lot of the jobs were, it was attracting people, but not just local migrations, but really increasing immigration. So let's give some examples of that. There were Italian workers that were going to Argentina for industrialized jobs. That's an example. Japanese were working agricultural jobs in the Southeast Asia region, migrating because of those jobs. Now, the biggest thing you have to think about is, well, how did they get there? Now, I know that shipping has been around for ever, but the difference is the technology has changed. Now we have steam engines. Now people can move much more easily, even though there's a cost to it, but they are much more easily moved because instead of taking weeks, it's only going to take days, and you can go from one hemisphere to the other. Many of the people that were leaving for these jobs were men. So in some societies, it was leaving women behind to do the work that was being voided by the men going to places like the Americas. One of the big groups of people that you need to know during this time period that migrated are the Irish. I know there's been a lot of talk about the Irish, their migrations, their patterns. I love those people. You know, I actually been to Ireland, was it 2 or 3 times? I love it. I mean, if you got a chance to go, you go. But I digress. Now listen, here's the thing. Ireland during this time period had this little issue with the potato famine, and it was causing a lot of issues for people being able to have enough food to eat. It also didn't help that the British were exporting lots of potatoes and other items, also causing more starvation on the Irish people. And so what did the Irish do? A lot of them went to England, but also a lot went to the Americas. So when they came to the United States, this is where they were flooding into places like Boston along the East Coast. And you have a lot of influence that was coming, and it was due to the potato famine. We also know the British, they had a lot of mining in South Africa. Some of that was gold, some of that was gems. There were people migrating that were engineers to help push along that process. So there's another form of migration, British to South Asia, engineers for the mining purposes. However, one big piece that has to be brought up is the Chinese and the Indian migration and the forced migration in that. Now, you're always going to have push and pull factors. So, for example, the Opium Wars and the political instability in China, that was pushing people that were in China to places like the U.S. But the U.S. had a problem with that because Chinese people were a little bit different. They bathed every day. They ate different food. They weren't Christian. So the native ideas behind that were American jobs were for Americans and that the Chinese should not be taking those. Even though the Chinese were very good workers and they were utilized during the gold rush in the late 1840s and the early 1850s, and then for the Continental Railroad, which was completed in the late 1860s. That did not stop the nativist attitudes, and what that ended up to be is they utilized, and it became law. The first time the U.S. ever had a law outlawing a national origin from coming into the country. That was the Chinese Exclusion Act. And that is a piece of evidence you must know for these migration periods, the causes and the effects. Another effect of migration is going to be the ethnic enclaves. Because there were so many Irish or Italian that were moving into the Americas or in China on the West Coast in San Francisco, they created ethnic enclaves. Now, these enclaves gave safety in numbers to individuals, and they created their own little neighborhoods. So it would allow them to live much easier. So if you've ever been to a large city and you've been to a Little Italy or a Chinatown, that's an ethnic enclave. They still exist today. There are immigrants that live and they feel safe in those areas because of the shared culture, shared language, and allowing them trust to live and be able to be productive in society. So remember, the causes are going to be based around industrialization, increased opportunities for workers, and the need for workers to move them around the globe. Some of the effects, You're talking about the Chinese Exclusion Act, the White Australia policy, but also you had the ethnic enclaves. And now you know your freaking history.